Let's take a look at the file browser that you can find here in the top right corner. This is the file browser. It's pretty simple. I mean, you should be familiar with it. So we're going to cover things that you might not be familiar with. First of all, on the right here, you can open all connections. If this bar like has the wrong size, you can resize it. That's no problem. You can open any shell connection that you added previously. And the important part here is that you just can not only add connections themselves, but also like subshells or any other shells or Docker anything, right? Anything that is supported as a normal shell connection is also supported by the file browser. It's not bounded by an SFTP protocol, for example. It works on literally any shell connection. Now let's open our local Windows subsystem here to demo a few things. Probably familiar with all the usual features that a file browser has, right? It's about dragging, dropping files. It's about creating new files, new directories, linking things, copying files, pasting files. I'm not going into details here because I hope you're familiar with it. You might not know from other file browsers is that, for example, this session can be elevated dynamically. So if you, for example, want to edit any files in a certain directory as root, because right now you're logged in as a default login user, you can always click on Open as root on any support systems. Then you either provide your password dynamically. You can also pre-provide it that you don't have to type it. That's up to you. Then you provide your password and suddenly you're into this directory as the root user, right? So, and this allows you to, first of all, separate the sessions, right? So you always know what user you are, because it can be quite important to not mess certain things up. So usually root sessions are always like marked as root, and anything you do here will be done as root user. And obviously you have the normal functionality. For example, you can open this directory with the current user anytime. And as you can see, this is like the root prompt. It's written in red, but we are the current user, right? We can echo our... Yes, we are the current root user. So obviously you can do that. You can use the open in terminal functionality everywhere, right? You can do that here. You can right click here and open a new terminal. That's pretty standard. You can edit any files with your favorite text editor, right? That should be shown here. In this case, it's VS Code, but it can be any editor you like. You can also run any file that is executable in various different ways. You can start it in a new terminal session. You can run it in the background, or you can run it in the background and wait for it to complete. But usually if you want to see the output, you want to run it in a new terminal session, as I can demonstrate here. And this is like the XPipe download script. We don't want this to finish, but essentially it will just download download the application. And as you can see, yeah, it instantly is run here. You can also transfer files between different remote systems, or between this and the local system, or the other way around. So one way of doing that is like the transfer pane down here. Now you can take any file from any system, for example this one or this one. You can bunch them up here in the transfer pane, and there are now different things that you can do with them. You can, for example, connect to a new system. Let's do that quickly here with our EC2 server. Right, so for example, we can go into the EC2 server here, take these files and drag them in here, right? So then they will just be copied to that remote system. Now we don't want to do that here because that's just for demo purposes. But what we can also do is we can click the download button. That will download them to the local machine, indicated here by the local suffix. And then you can take these files and just drag them into your native desktop environment, right? These are just like now normal files that you can not drop anymore in here, but you can drop it into the native file browser, for example, the Windows Explorer in my case. So if you're done with that, you can clear your selection. You can of course also copy entire directories, download them and transfer them. That's no different. You can also directly drag files between systems. For example, you can drag this file, hover over the tab here and drop it here. That will copy it directly without going through the transfer pane, right? But we don't want to do that either. It's just for demo purposes. You can, of course, also drag files from your native desktop environment into XPipe. So, for example, we can drag these files straight up into here. That will copy the index into this. You can also, of course, delete it again because we don't need it. You can also synchronize your clipboard with your system clipboard. So, for example, if we go into the File Explorer here and I, for example, copy this file, right? I copy it. Then you will see I will have one file in my clipboard because I just pressed Ctrl-C. So if I press Ctrl-V in here, it will just paste the file from the clipboard as before. You can, of course, also copy files within the clipboard of XPipe itself. So I can go over here and maybe over here as well. Then copy. I have two files in the clipboard. Then I can go into another system and paste them here. It's the same thing. There is also support for your local machine in the file browser. So you're not only limited to remote systems, you can also access your entire local machine content in here, which is pretty neat. You can also, via certain desktop integrations, you can, for example, if we go here, we can right-click here and we can open in XPipe, and this will automatically navigate to this directory on the local machine, which is also pretty nice. It saves you a lot of time sometimes. It also works the other way around. So you can right-click here, and you can also just browse it in your Windows Explorer, or you can show the file details of it also via the native desktop integration, right? This looks different on every single system, but it works the same. Another thing that you can do to increase your productivity is use certain variables, or basically any variables, in the navigation bar directly. So instead of navigating to the home path, you can also use any variables. These are dynamically resolved. So any variables that you paste in here will be resolved to a path. If there is any other input in here that is not a path, so for example, if I do this, if I write a command into here, it is also resolved, but not as a path, but as a command. So if I press enter here on a command, then it will automatically open this command in this shell. The same goes for shells as well. So if I want to, like currently this is a bash login shell, and if I open a new terminal session, it will open a bash session. But if I want to open another shell, then I can just open the shell here, and it will launch, in this case, the Bourne shell, just as before. And that's all there is to it for now. I hope that you can find the file browser productive and that it makes your life easier.